Hello. Let's talk about Pentecostal spirituality and emotional intelligence. What is it that makes a great leader? Well, the answer seems to be emotional intelligence. And we define emotional intelligence as a person that has 5 characteristics. First, an emotionally intelligent person is a person who is self-aware, a person who knows themselves and knows the impact they have on others. It's also a person who understands self-regulation, being able to control disruptive impulses. Motivation, that we relish achievement for the sake of achievement. No one has to tell us to get out of bed in the morning. No one has to tell us to go to work. No one has to tell us to complete the job. We're highly self-motivated. Also, a person with emotional intelligence has deep sense of empathy. They understand other people's emotional makeup. And then finally, an emotionally intelligent person has developed significant social skills. They can build rapport with individuals and they can build rapport with groups. In an article in the Harvard Business Review in December 2002, the authors published The Young and the Clueless. And they asked the question, are you determined on sabotaging your company? If so, then promote the brightest young professionals into your most demanding roles. Get what they're saying. If you want to develop bad leaders, promote young, inexperienced, but talented people. Young leaders do tend to be energetic, talented, and motivated, but they also tend to be self-centered, ambitious, impatient, and lacking the emotional competencies to develop relationships necessary to leadership. Star performers get noticed and they get promoted. However, they often end up self-sabotaging, burning out, alienating themselves from the people that they care about, and ultimately failing. Youth, talent, and charisma can be a toxic blend. All we have to do is look around us. We look at the entertainers, the politicians, the athletes, people of great talent who rise to stardom, but they don't have the emotional capacity to deal with the power, to deal with the influence, to deal with the popularity that comes with their rise to power, and they self-destruct. Names like Whitney Houston, Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson. And in the church, we have example after example of men and women who have risen to be great leaders only to fall like a flaming star because of their lack of emotional intelligence or their lack of spiritual maturity. So if a leader is clueless, how do we break the pattern? Well, the authors of this article suggest, number one, delay promotions. Don't promote young but talented people too quickly. Give them time to grow and develop emotionally. Give them time to learn competent skills in developing relationships and friendships with peers and subordinates. We've got to help young leaders become self-aware. We've got to help them see themselves the way their peers and subordinates see themselves. The authors of this article have suggested that what a manager or a CEO tends to do when they're thinking of promoting a young leader is they invite the young leader to the office and then question them about their results and about their skills. That's a mistake. Instead of talking to the young leader that's up for promotion, the manager or the CEO should talk to that leader's peers, should talk to that leader's subordinates. What do peers and subordinates say about relationship skills? If they don't get high marks for relationship skills from peers or subordinates, then they will likely rise quickly, but fall just as quickly. We've got to help young leaders develop negotiation and influencing skills that don't depend upon charisma, authority, or hierarchy. In other words, they can't walk into the room and say, I'm the boss, so we're going to do it this way. They've got to walk in the room with relational skills that encourage people to want to get to know them, and not only to get to know them, but to work for them, to accomplish for them. Their subordinates and their peers need to believe in them. So leadership does not depend upon charisma, authority, or hierarchy, but leadership depends upon character, maturity, and emotional intelligence. We've got to learn to emphasize emotional development over results. In the church world, a young man or a young woman becomes known as an anointed preacher. They develop a following, they plant a church, they grow the church. We look at all of those results and we think they must all have it together, only to discover later, after they've fallen apart, that they didn't have it together. They were succeeding on their talents, succeeding on their charisma, but their leadership skills were not established. And what they ended up building was a shell of an organization or an institution. And that shell collapses when they collapse. The other thing we've got to understand in developing young leaders is that young leaders require ongoing mentoring relationships. So let's ask ourselves, what can the United States military tell us about leadership? Well, keep this in mind. The average age of a captain in the U.S. Army is 28. The average age of a major in the U.S. Army is 31. So what's the difference? How is it that the United States military can succeed in developing powerful young leaders? It's because the military understands that developing young leaders requires ongoing training, ongoing assessment, and ongoing accountability. The United States government invests millions and even billions of dollars in the training of young soldiers. They're trained in military culture, they're trained in military protocol, how to use weapons, how to maintain weapons. They're trained in military strategy. In every area that they're required to serve in the military, they receive ongoing training. In fact, the training never stops. But the military also does ongoing assessments. They assess their skills, psychological assessments, physiological assessments, emotional assessments, aptitudes, everything that can be assessed. The United States military assesses it, and they assess the personality, and they determine where this individual can best serve. And finally, the military understands that in developing leadership, there must always be accountability. From the moment that young person, 18 or 19 years old, goes into the military sends them to school. The military puts them through exercises. The military helps them develop discipline. The military helps them to understand the chain of command. And there is never a moment that that person is not accountable to those over them. So what can the military teach the church about leadership? If we're serious in developing soldiers for Christ, it's going to take a financial investment. It's going to take ongoing training, ongoing assessment, and ongoing accountability.